So what's up, people, and welcome to another episode of Comics, Animations, and Movies. So for today, I would like to cover the comic series Tokyo Ghoul. Now, this is not a chapter-by-chapter commentary, nor is this a review of the comic. The reason I am making this episode is actually a personal one. There's been something that has been bugging me recently since the recent chapters have come out. And I wanted to take this opportunity for making this video as a discussion point. Now, before I go on, I would like to say that the information in this video is extremely spoiler rich. So if you have not read the comic series of both Tokyo Ghoul and Tokyo Ghoul RE up to what I would say is the point of the dragon arc, which for anybody who has read the comic would understand, then I would suggest that you turn off this video, because I will be talking about some of the things that have come up in the comic which are extremely twists in the plot. And for people who have not read the manga and is considering reading the manga, it will be extremely spoiler to your comics experience if you hear about it before reading the manga. So yeah, if you're interested in reading the manga or the comic and have not read up to the most recent chapters of Tokyo Ghoul RE up to the dragon arc, I would suggest not to listen to this video. Now, for those of you who have, I would like to see if you have any opinions and comments with regards to the question I would like to ask. And so before I go on, I will pause for a minute for anybody who would like to turn off the video. Okay, so at this point, I would assume that anybody who's watching has read the manga up to the dragon arc or do not care that they get spoiled if they do decide to read the manga. Okay, so the question I have involves the comment which, of course, Furuta made, which I thought was a troll comment in the beginning, and later on understood that it's actually quite a significant comment. And that is with regards to his mention of the super piece. And of course, that was a comment that he made when Eto asked him what exactly was he up to. And he turned around and made that unusual, gesture and said super piece, as if he was making a joke again. And I thought that he was trolling Gato. But it turns out that that's exactly what his purpose was. And that was very interesting because it completely changed the character of Furuta. Up till that point, he was a complete antagonist, almost to the point of being like the Joker. And then at that point, you realize that he actually has a purpose and an objective to his madness. And the purpose is actually an interesting one. It's world peace. It's something that you would never expect from an antagonist, and definitely would not expect from somebody like Furuta. And yet he was serious about it. And as you keep on reading on, then you start realizing that this was exactly his plan from the very beginning, because he required, of course, Dragon Kaneki to get to that point. And of course, the point is Dragon Kaneki will become the Dragon Kaneki, which will require all of humans and ghouls to come together to be able to defend themselves against the dragon. And that will stop the war between the ghouls and the humans, and hopefully will bring long-lasting peace, which I think is what he actually wanted, although we're never sure with Furuta. So if that's the case, of course, it's moving in that direction. But if you think about it, he needed Dragon Kaneki to do so, and to make Kaneki into a ghoul that, of course, became the One-Eye Ghoul, that became the One-Eye King, that became the Dragon Kaneki. This would have had to have been planned right from the start. Now, if you think about it, right from the very beginnings of the chapter of Tokyo Ghoul, the original series, you realize, of course, as you keep on reading, that it was Furuta who killed Rize right after she critically injured Kaneki, and basically that saved Kaneki. But of course, that was planned by Furuta right from the beginning. So you understand that this has been a long plan that has been moving along right from the beginning of the comic, and Furuta is one of the main people that has brought this super peace plan along. Now, of course, he can't do it without other people. And of course, the other person that you know who wanted super peace because of his recent monologue before he killed himself is, of course, Dr. Kano. And Dr. Kano wanted super peace for a different reason than Furuta. He didn't want peace. What he wanted was for humanity to be able to get positive results from interacting with ghouls rather than negative. He was sick and tired of watching people die, watching ghouls die, and what he wanted was to see if the ghouls' powers can be used positively rather than negatively to help humankind. And he understood that this will never happen unless there was peace between the ghouls and the humans, and that would never happen unless that was kind of engineered, because of course the humans could not stand the ghouls, and of course the ghouls had the same sort of feeling, vice versa. And so unless this animosity between the two groups ceased, he could not see humanity benefiting from the ghouls, especially from a medical perspective. And so, of course, he was the instigator of bringing Kaneki along from becoming a human to a one-eyed ghoul to the one-eyed king to the dragon Kaneki. It required not only the engineering of Kaneki himself, but many other people, including the old guy, to bring about this transformation. And from that, you realize that, from my perspective, I feel that maybe Kano and Furuta were working together because of the fact that, of course, it is very coincidental that right after Furuta kills Rize and Rize critically injures Kaneki, that opens up the opportunity for Furuta to be able to save Kaneki by turning him into a one-eyed ghoul. And of course, Furuta's plan would have been completely for naught if Kano wasn't there to do this transformation, and Kano would have never been able to do this transformation unless Furuta provided the opportunity to do so by killing Rize after she critically injured Kaneki. So I do think that those two were working together right from the beginning. However, now that you think about it, then the plan for bringing Kaneki along to the point of becoming dragon was going on since the very beginning of the comic, and it required Kaneki to go through several layers of transformation to finally get to the point where he could become dragon so that they could instigate world peace or super peace, as Furuta mentions. So the question is of course, if you look at it down the comic story, Furuta and Kano alone weren't the only people who influenced Kaneki to get to this position. So the question I wanted to find out was exactly how many people want this world super peace? And of course, from the opposite perspective, you also know that Arima and Eto also, to some extent, wanted this super peace because of the fact that that's what they were guarding the One-Eyed King's throne for. They both knew that they themselves couldn't bring about it. Arima, because of his limited lifespan and the inability to be able to influence the ghouls, and of course Eto only could influence the ghouls. So Eto created, of course, the Aogiri tree, and Arima became the strongest member of the CCG. And both parties could work both sides, one side working the strongest of the ghouls and the other the strongest of the humans, to bring about the opportunity to look for the next One-Eyed King. And just coincidentally, of course, Kaneki pops up due to Furuta and Kano's influence, and that gives them the ability to see if he can become the next One-Eyed King. And of course, when they realized that he could, they offered him that throne. Now, with that said, I do not think that Arima and Eto were working with Furuta and Kano just because of the fact that Eto cannot stand Furuma, or Furuta, I should say, and basically they were at war at each other in vicious ways. And so I don't think those two were together, but it just turns out that they were both working towards a common goal, because of course both Eto and Arima wanted the peace between humanity and ghouls as well. And because of that, of course, Arima's final statement was, he was feeling so guilty because he always took away life. And for once, he was able to do something that hopefully will bring back life. And so with all of this, you start understanding that they were working for a common goal, although they were not working together. I don't think they were working together. They may have, and if that was the case, wow, Eto and Furuta put up a very good acting ability, but I don't think so, considering how much they hated each other, and considering the fact that, of course, it was Furuta who killed Eto at the very end. Now, aside from that, however, of course, Kaneki grew to become the One-Eyed King due to Eto and Arima's influence, and Kaneki was able to convince them that he was the next One-Eyed King because of Furuta and Kano's influence. However, I'm not sure again if that alone was enough to do so, because of the fact that between the point that Kaneki became the One-Eyed Ghoul due to Furuta and Kano, and he became the One-Eyed King due to Eto and Arima, there was that middle ground where he potentially could have done anything else and may not have become a candidate to become the One-Eyed King, which of course was necessary to become Dragon. And so was there anybody else involved with the moving Kaneki along to make sure that he becomes a perfect candidate for Dragon? Now, of course, if you think about it from a story's perspective, once he becomes the One-Eyed Ghoul, or once he becomes a ghoul, or a half-ghoul, I should say, if you recall the first few chapters, he was completely alone. And at that point, he was extremely vulnerable, right? I mean, any ghoul could have killed him at that point, and it was only due to an influence of one person that he was able to continue to move along, and that person was Yoshimura of Anteku. And the question I want to know is was Yoshimura also involved with a desire to bring world peace? And of course, the answer is yes for that, but how does this all overlap between Furuta and Kano and Eto and Arima? If you think about it, it was Yoshimura who basically gave Kaneki a chance by influencing both Toka as well as Yomo to basically take him in and basically train him and get him to understand what it was to be a ghoul without, of course, having him turn to the dark side of the ghoul. And it is interesting that at the point where he was finally ready to be taken in by Arima and Eto's group, mostly Arima, I should say, it was at that point that Anteku disappeared and Yoshimura basically got killed, although you're not really sure about that point as well. But Yoshimura disappeared. And it is interesting that if you keep on going down the line, as Kaneki continues to evolve to the next stage, the people who were the most influential to bring him to the previous stage basically kind of cease to exist in the storyline, right? I mean, the moment Kaneki got to the point where he was self-sufficient, and then he went by himself, originally with Tsukiyama, Banjo, and Hinami, of course, that group, to become even stronger, and then finally get to the point where he was comfortable, he was at peace, and he was ready to come back to Anteku. Then, of course, it was at that point that conveniently Anteku gets identified as a ghoul headquarters, one of the ghoul headquarters, and of course gets attacked by the CCG. And it's at that point that, of course, Yoshimura disappears, which brings Kaneki to be alone again. It's at that point, of course, also that he battles with Arima, gets to the point where he can convince Arima that he is strong enough to potentially become the One-Eyed King, and so Arima takes him in. So there seems to be this transfer of responsibility from Yoshimura to Arima to take Kaneki to the next level, which will be to get him prepared to become the One-Eyed King. And of course, then through the experiences he had as Heisei, he of course continues to grow stronger and stronger. Battling against Eto, also battling against Arima, eventually to the point where he basically can beat both of them. Either of them. And at that point, what's interesting is, of course, Arima kills himself, and Eto dies conveniently by the hands of Furuta. And of course, that brings him to the point where he becomes the One-Eyed King, and the person he now targets to become stronger and stronger is, of course, Furuta himself. So there seems to be this transfer of Kaneki from one party to another to basically take him to a next level of strength or power, basically. And what's of course interesting is as one is relinquished and the previous party hands Kaneki off, then that previous party basically disappears. And recently with Dragon, of course, even Furuta kind of changed his personality, and he's almost stopped being the Joker troll that he always is, and almost had a somber expression at the very last parts of when Dragon first comes out. He's almost like, I have no purpose in life anymore, sort of thing. And even Kano, of course, at that point, once Dragon is done, basically kills himself as well. And so, it just keeps on going on with regards to this pattern. I don't know if they were all involved, but each one of these people was absolutely necessary to bring Kaneki along to the point where he is. And Kaneki seems to be the catalyst to bring this super piece. And he does need to keep on going stronger and stronger. And now, as what Furuta mentioned, is that, of course, humanity will come together to battle or defend against Dragon. I don't know if Dragon will be evil or be good. I'm not exactly sure. Right now, he's like Godzilla, and it does require the ghouls and the humans to come together. And in fact, the ghouls and the humans did come together. But here is yet another question with regards to, again, who is involved with this super piece. Because throughout this entire ordeal, from the very beginning of the comic to the very recent era, there is one other person that has been required to make sure Kaneki comes along. And that, of course, is Hide. Hide was there right from the beginning when Kaneki became interested in Rize. And for some reason, he just happened to be there to make sure that Kaneki and Rize got together. Once he became a half-ghoul, Hide was always there, kind of supporting Kaneki, making sure that everything goes well. And somewhere along the way, he gets brought into Anteku, at which point Hide disappears again. And it's only around the latter part of the story that of the very original comic story that Hide comes out again. And what he said was very interesting at that point. He said, I am here to support you because there is someone you need to convince that you are strong enough for him, which of course was Arima. He needed to battle Arima. And it almost felt like Hide knew that this needed to be done because Arima will bring him in and raise him as Heisei. So how did Hide know? I have no idea. This is not really any sort of hypothesis. This is just questions. Why is this going along this way? Why is Hide always 5 steps ahead of everybody else? For example, even when Kaneki became Dragon, there was no indication that the ghouls and the humans will come along except when somebody brought the ghouls to the CCG and offered their help to the humans. Now, of course, the humans would have completely gotten angry and battled the ghouls at that point, except they stopped because the person who brought the ghouls over was Hide. And so this would have not went along to bring about super peace unless Hide, of course, brought the ghouls over to bring peace and work with the CCG to save Kaneki by somehow, taking down the dragon form. And so, yeah, again, all of these things that Hide is doing in the back, including things like informing Marude about the Washu clan. All of this is going on. How does he know all of this? I have no idea. Everybody, including myself, idolizes Hide because he's just so smart and seems to be 5 steps ahead of everybody. But he seems to be 5 steps ahead of completely everybody, with maybe the exception of Furuta. Those two seem to be equally head and head with understanding what everybody else is knowing. But it seems like from a 2 opposite extremes, they're kind of moving this thing along. At least whether it's cooperatively or indirectly, I don't know. But Furuta's moving it along from an evil perspective of making sure the dark side continues to move forward. And Hide is almost moving this from a positive perspective, a light side. And it's almost like one is a destroyer and the other is a creator sort of thing. But it's very interesting that Hide from the back is still going on. And I still would like to know how Hide is so knowledgeable and all of this. Now, the one final person that I would think would want Super Peace to come along is a character that so far has not been identified who he is yet, and that, of course, is the original One-Eye King. So the original One-Eye King, of course, wanted Super Peace way back, battled the Washus, and the Washus would not offer that, and so he was beaten and sent underground. But supposedly he is alive. And if he is alive and he does want Super Peace to still come along, then what has he been doing in the back? Has he been doing anything in the back? Who is exactly basically overseeing this entire thing? Because it is very interesting that everything is moving in a coincidental manner, layer upon layer, where each one of the people would bring Kaneki and take them under them, and then once Kaneki no longer needed them, then that layer would basically disappear and the next layer would appear. And how is all of this going along? Because, of course, once again that Eto and Furuta could not be working together, and yet coincidentally, they seem to all know or be at the right place at the right time for each other. Although they hated each other, they seem to be able to provide Kaneki at the most opportune moment for each other. And so I don't know exactly if there is anybody in the back, controlling this entire process, and whether that would be the One-Eye King, whether that would be Hide, I don't know. Whether Hide is the One-Eye King, I have no idea. I just brought this up because of the fact that I noticed as we keep on going, and ever since Furuta's understanding and the desire to bring world peace, rather than just a troll joke remark that he gave to Eto, he really does desire to bring world peace. All of these things started coming to clarity. However, there's still a lot of ambiguity with regards to who exactly is behind all of this, what exactly is the purpose, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to create this video, because of the fact that I wanted to ask you guys what you felt about it. Okay, so now I'm talking too much, and so yeah, that's basically what I wanted to ask. Who is involved with the world super peace, and what is left that's necessary to bring about this? I mean, some of it is pretty understandable, where Ishida could go any direction, such as bringing in an evil Kaneki that needs to be destroyed, which I don't think Hide would be too agreeable for. So, but it may become bringing of Kaneki in to hopefully bring him back to being good. I'm not sure. Ishida is a very complex person. He does like to troll his readers, and he does it in a very good manner. So I will be looking forward to seeing what happens. I just wanted to hear your feelings with regards to what may be going on. And for anybody who comments, I would like to thank them right from the beginning. Anyway, that's about it with regards to this episode of comics, animations, and movies. And next week, I probably will go back to trying to make my Battle Angel Lita Tokyo Ghoul video that I've always wanted to do. In any case, if you please have any comments, please post them in the comment section below. And we'll continue with more comics, animations, and movies videos in the future. At that time, I hope you join us. Thank you very much for watching this video. Happy manga reading, comic reading, anime watching, and movie watching. And until the next episode, Jaya, nice day, everyone.